Welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right in, because today we're exploring a deeply profound vision for our shared spaces. We usually look at urban planning, societal development, and community building through the lens of cold, hard data, zoning laws, or economic metrics. But what happens when we flip the script? What happens when we look at our communities through the lens of contemplation, poetry, and faith? Today we're going to unpack a short but incredibly powerful piece of writing called Fruit Gardens. It acts as this meditative blueprint for society, completely challenging us to rethink the very fabric of where we live, all the way from the smallest local garden to the vastness of an entire nation. So get ready, because we're going to shift your perspective on what our everyday spaces could, and honestly probably should, look like.
I want you to just sit with this striking question for a second. Where are the age-old fruit gardens, free for all to relish? That is the exact opening line from our source text, and it immediately hooks you, doesn't it? It evokes this real sense of nostalgia, a longing for something pure, accessible, and just generous that feels kind of lost in our modern, everyday hustle. It's asking us to look around our immediate environments and really notice what's missing. But before we dive too deep into the specific spaces this text envisions, we need to understand the mind that actually crafted this question.
The visionary behind these words is Oluyomi Ola-David. Now, what's really fascinating here is how she presents her identity. She is a Nigerian woman, and as we look at her contemplations, it is absolutely crucial to view them through her unique perspective. See, she isn't just writing idle poetry. Her work is deeply rooted in a real concern for global transformation. She describes herself as someone who loves people, and you can truly feel that heartbeat in her writing. Her goal isn't just to point out the flaws in society. She wants to generate actual solutions and provide some much-needed clarity in a world that, let's face it, often feels totally chaotic.
Looking at her background, we can really see how it builds the foundation for her work. Oluyomi Ola-David operates at this amazing intersection. As a Nigerian, passionate about global development, she actively works to influence policy and strategy, and this is vital context for us. When she writes a poetic piece like Fruit Gardens, we shouldn't just read it as art. We need to read it as a strategic blueprint. And driving the whole shebang is her deeply rooted faith. She literally states, "My Father God owns and rules the universe. He is the wheel within my wheels." So her faith isn't separate from her policy ideas. Actually, it's the absolute engine driving her vision for how we should all live together on this earth.
Throughout her text, she's intentionally setting up a contrast. She repeatedly invokes this nostalgia for age-old spaces, gardens, squares, streets, that represent a time of communal harmony and safety. But here's the kicker. She doesn't just want to live in the past. She forcefully anchors these ancient, ideal concepts right into modern targets, demanding they be realized in our villages, towns, suburbs, and cities. She uses that exact rhythmic repetition over and over to insist that these age-old ideals are not outdated. They are, in fact, universally necessary across every single level of modern human settlement. Okay, let's bring it back to her opening question. Where are the age-old fruit gardens, free for all to relish? Notice how she starts at the absolute smallest, most fundamental space imaginable, the local garden. In her vision, the Earth's natural abundance shouldn't be locked away behind a fence or exclusively commodified. She's challenging us to ask why our basic physical environments don't inherently provide for the people just walking through them.
And here is where it gets really practical. She answers her own contemplation with a crystal-clear, actionable directive. She declares, fruits should be the cheapest snacks around villages, towns, suburbs, and cities. Just think about the policy implications of that one simple sentence. She is advocating for an environment where natural, healthy nourishment is literally the most accessible and affordable option everywhere, whether you're in a rural village or a densely packed urban city. It is a massive vision for public health and urban agriculture, all wrapped up in a poetic mandate. She wants to literally plant the seeds of community well-being in every single neighborhood. After tackling the garden, she moves one step up the community ladder to the village square. She asks, where are the age-old village squares free for little ones to meet, clean storylines? I mean, what a fascinating phrase, right? Clean storylines. She is looking at public gathering spaces and evaluating them entirely based on the cultural and moral safety they provide to children. In a world completely saturated with complex and honestly often harmful media, she is longing for physical spaces where innocence is protected. Spaces where the narratives kids encounter in their everyday lives are just wholesome and edifying. Her answer to this issue is totally uncompromising. She says squares should be the safest spots around villages, towns, suburbs, and cities. Once again, we hear that powerful drumbeat: villages, towns, suburbs, and cities. She is demanding universal application here. A public square shouldn't just be some nice architectural feature or a traffic roundabout. Its #1 metric for success has to be safety. Physical safety, sure, but also emotional and cultural safety for the most vulnerable people among us. For Oluyomi, community planning absolutely has to prioritize the well-being of the little ones.
Zooming out even further, she shifts her focus to the connective tissue of our communities, the streets. She asks, where are the age-old quiet streets open for prudence to do business? Now, she's talking about commerce and daily interaction, but pay attention to her wording here. She pairs quiet streets with doing business. She doesn't view commerce as inherently chaotic or noisy or exploitative. Instead, she's picturing an economic environment defined by prudence, by careful, wise, and highly respectful exchanges. And her vision for these streets? It's genuinely elevating. She says streets should be the resort of all noble skills around villages, towns, suburbs, and cities. The word resort is key here. It implies a place of gathering, refinement, a place to really showcase something. She envisions our streets not just as thoroughfares for cars to rush through, but as vibrant platforms where people can practice and display their noble skills. It's such a beautiful way to look at everyday infrastructure. Her policy mind is totally shining through, basically suggesting that our economy should be purposely designed to foster and celebrate human dignity and craftsmanship at every single level of society. So, if we take a step back and look at the whole picture we've covered, we can clearly see her masterful spatial escalation. She has literally given us a utopian blueprint. She didn't just throw these ideas together at random. No, she deliberately started at the micro level with the fruit gardens, focusing on basic nourishment. Then, she expanded out to the village squares, focusing on communal safety and children. From there, she stepped up to the quiet streets, focusing on commerce and noble skills. She is building an entire society from the ground up, logically and intentionally, setting the stage for her final, macro-level vision, the nation itself. Having built this rock-solid foundation, she drops her final, grandest question. Where is the united nation, full of hope, faith, love, and peace? Take a second and really let that sink in. Having laid out the non-negotiable requirements for our gardens, our squares, and our streets, she's now asking where this ultimate, unified macro-community actually exists today. It's a deeply poignant question that really challenges the current state of global affairs. She is looking for a society that embodies the very highest spiritual and moral virtues, hope, faith, love, and peace, but on a national scale. And this brings us right to the climax of her contemplation. She answers her own profound question, not by pointing to a place on a map, but with the passionate, declarative call to action. She says, "Let our nation exemplify days of heaven on earth." This is the exact moment where her faith and her deep desire for societal transformation fully merge together. She isn't just sitting around waiting to find this perfect nation. She's calling for her own nation, and really, by extension, all of our nations, to actively manifest this heavenly reality right here, right now. It is bold, it's beautiful, and it's an unapologetically ambitious goal for human society. So what's the big takeaway for us in this explainer? Oluyomi Oladevid has given us a completely unique framework where faith seamlessly meets policy. By walking us through her progression, from the free fruit gardens, up to the safe village squares, out to the noble streets, and finally arriving at a nation defined by love and peace, she is challenging us to elevate our expectations for the spaces we live in every day. She makes a compelling case that true global transformation actually begins by reimagining our local, everyday environments with real intention and care. So I'm going to leave you with this to ponder the next time you walk through your own town. Look around. If you were to redesign your immediate community using her blueprint, what is the absolute first thing you would change? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and as always, keep seeking clarity in the world around you.